make a change of the world around your race. They've been able to set the pace.
Welcome to another thrilling episode as we engage another icon on your favourite programme, Youth Engage. Our guest today has been called the grandfather of African geography, and he is a gem of a scholar of great note. Beyond this, he is also an exceptionally good man and an extraordinary patriot. He is none other than Professor Akinlawon Ladipo Mabogunje. Born on the 18th of October 1931 to Pa Joseph Omotunde Mabogunje, a retired UAC official, and Madam Janet Adeola Mabogunje, a trader. Young Mabogunje had his elementary education at the Holy Trinity School and the United Native African Church School in Kano from 1935 to 1941, and Central School Mapo, Ibadan in 1942. His secondary education was at the famous Ibadan Grammar School from 1943 to 1948. His university education began in 1949 at the then University College, Ibadan, where he earned a BA in Geography in 1953. Professor Mabogunje then proceeded to the University of London, where he earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in 1956, a Master's along with a PhD, all in Geography in 1958 and 1961 respectively. Professor Mabogunje, ALM, started his professional career as a lecturer at the University of Ibadan in 1958. He became a senior lecturer in 1964 and a professor of geography the following year. Thus, at the tender age of 34 and within 7 years of joining the university staff, he had reached the highest level of his profession. This is a record which still stands not only in the Department of Geography at the university, but indeed anywhere on the African continent in the social sciences. Professor Mabogunje has served as a visiting professor to around a dozen prestigious universities all over the world, among which are the universities of Cambridge, Oxford and London, along with Northwestern University in the United States, McGill University in Canada, and as a visiting scholar to the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Professor Mabogunje has aptly demonstrated his administrative expertise and competence in many spheres at university, national and international levels. At the national level, he has served in various capacities, both in the public and private sectors of the Nigerian economy. At international level, he has held many important positions, either as a member, chairman or president of about a dozen organisations. He has received a plethora of honours in various academic, professional and administrative fields, both nationally and internationally. Married to Justice Titi and blessed with children and grandchildren, we present one of the fathers of the social sciences in Nigeria, a true icon for the youth, Professor Akinlawon Mabogunje. Welcome to Youth Engage.
Yes, sir. Comparing the youth of today
Yes.
to your youthful life,
Yes.
when you were a youth,
Yes.
what is the difference that you spot? And do you believe in the youth of today? Do you believe they can perform?
Oh, I always believe in the youth. Why? Because if you don't, you're just wasting your time. There would always be the youth. I'll tell you a story. There was some time ago when people were saying, the youth of today, it's the end of the world. Can they do anything? Okay, and then somebody brought out a quotation from the 5th century BC, when somebody was saying exactly that can we leave the world in the hands of the youth? Of course. Who else would we leave it in their hands? The only thing is, you see, two things. Their world is changing. I mean, between when I was a student and today, you just think of the cascade of innovations, of technical development, even all these cameras. Okay. And I can remind, okay, you may be too young, but there was a time all we were doing was typing. Okay. We were posting letters. Then it came, we could fax letters. Then we could email letters. Then we could say SMS. And we could do, but that's your generation. Okay. So in a sense, you're more skilled in certain areas than we are. The one thing one tells the youth is that what we call the eternal verities don't change. What are the verities? Means truth. Those things don't change. But the social context in which they have to operate those things change. And it's that process of change that the youth come in. And when you say you don't believe in the youth, you were a young man once, and the world ended up in your hand as an old man. Are you going to take the world to your grave, or are you going to hand it over to some other generation? But as I said, those guiding principles don't change. That's why we call them eternal verities.
Thank you, sir.
Good.
Sir,
Yeah.
as a planner,
Yeah.
can you kindly tell us, is Nigeria well planned by your generation like other advanced countries for us to inherit?
Look at this part of the country, the western part. We had always, our grandfather, have always tended to live in what we call urban settlement, compact and large. Now, depending on the circumstance those places grew up, they had plants or they had no plants. If you went to Ijebu-Ode or Ife or Ilesha, you will see what we call a rectilinear pattern of roads. If you came to Ibadan or Abeokuta, it's all hickledy-pickledy because they developed under war conditions. But since then, we've trained planners, but they seem more concerned with layout, new layout, than with the old city. It's only now we haven't government talking about urban renewal. And you see them knocking down houses and trying to put some order into our cities. But we will have to get there. Only remember, in Nigeria, we've had like 11 years of civilian rule. We had 6 years before, between 1960 and 1966. We had 4 of Shagari, and we've only started since 1999. So there's still a lot to be done, and the expectation is that as your generation read about planning, as you go abroad and see how other places develop, you would come back and plan. That's why I was involved in the planning of Abuja. It's meant to show you what a planned city can be like, but there are still many things we're not doing right in Abuja. But you saw Lagos, part of it is planned, part is not planned, depending on where you are. So, but it's one thing I would hope your generation would pay a lot more attention to.
Thank you, sir.
Good.
Who are your role models?
The question of role model are really things that are very important in the critical period of between 15 and maybe 30. At that time, our role model were people like Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Why? Because they were holding out to us how a patriotic person can live his life disciplined, self-disciplined, honest, with integrity, hard work, and so on. And so a lot of us in those days, if you saw my picture at a young man of 20, we would put on our cap. We would, okay, at that time, now we wear agbada with glee. But at that time, it was regarded as native. Only rural people wear agbada and so on. We all had to dress like the colonial chap. Okay, but the Awolowo people broke that and said, agbada, that's our own, and we can have three-piece suit of a buba shokoto, and we would all go that way. We would abhor alcohol, again, because we know people in his generation, they are leaders. Because really role models means you trying to put yourself like a leader. And that meant any leader worth being a role model must fulfill, if you like, I would say 4 basic things. He must have integrity, That means he's honest, he's truthful, okay? He must be diligent. He must work hard, okay? And he must have a modest lifestyle. When we were in school, our principal used to tell us something like, okay, I don't know whether you all speak Yoruba, but we went to, and he will say, Tete jaye, ko ma ba jepe. Ma tete jaye, ko ba le jepe. Do you know what that means? Okay. Don't try to enjoy life too early, because then it won't last. So all these young men trying to make money too early, what would you do with money as a young man? Okay, first, that's when you don't fool around with women. That will kill you. When you have cars you shouldn't have, okay, you would have friends you don't need. And in the process, you can kill yourself. The Yorubas again will say things like, Ishe ki pààyàn, ayọ̀ ló ń pààyàn. When you are busy, you have things to work hard on, it can't kill you. In fact, it can only make you stronger. It's when you have nothing to do and you have money that you're likely to do a stupid thing and kill yourself. Let me tell you the story. There is an old friend of ours who came to see us when we were bellyaching about all these people stealing money from government. And he says, their greatest menace is not the government, it's their family. A person who doesn't have more money than making a place like this suddenly gets into billions. The first person he deals with is his mother. This is a woman living in the rural area. Now you've stolen money, you have it in millions, you now call an architect. Can you help me design a small house of 8 rooms for my mother? Small house of... Okay. What's the most expensive floor thing? You say it's the money in his brain. Oh, they say, of course, we could put marble there. He says, that's the only thing my mother will have. So they put marble You moving Mama from her rural into a small house of 8 bedroom with marble floor. So you take Mama there, and Mama says, "Oh, nice, my son," and so on. I say, "Mama, but you see, this floor is not like your something." No? He says, "You think I'm blind?" Okay. And Mama was living there, sleeps, knock her head, Mama is gone. Okay. That's the first casualty of, okay. Then he takes his children and he destroys them one by one, because the young boy who used to do well in school ended up passing to the university. Already in his room he had a small TV and so on. So the father says, "Yes, I know you can do it. Yeah, you go there and show them you are my son." So he calls his henchman and says, "Now what can we give this young man who's done so well? He's been admitted to UI." He says, "Well, we can give him a small car." He says, "My son, yes. Let's give him a baby Benz." I mean, you are still a baby, aren't you? He says, "Baby." Now that's a car even his professors don't ride. Okay, so they give him a baby Benz. He gets there. What about pocket money? We'll give him 5,000. Okay, so he goes to the university, and of course, immediately he starts having friends he doesn't need. They want to use his car to go to party, to go to this, to bring girls, and he starts fooling around with girls and so on. And then, as often happens, it gets boring. So he brings something, cocaine. And before you know it, that boy is a drug addict. God is a God of retribution, except that we don't see when he punishes those who have punished their nation. But there is no doubt that they do pay for it in more ways than we can imagine. So, what's the lesson? The Yorubas will say, "Shebo Timo."
Now, what leadership values did you inherit that you think that our generation of now does not possess?
I wouldn't use the word your generation doesn't, because the leadership values are always there, And those of you who would be successful leaders will still have to show that. You have to be disciplined, okay? You have to be consultative. Otherwise, they'll throw you out after sometimes you're dictatorial, okay? You have to be appreciative of people's strengths and weaknesses. As I said, you have to lead by example. And those issues that are examples have to do with integrity. If you are a leader and you start stealing our money, we'll discover you and we'll throw you out. If you are a leader and you told us one lie, we will find out one day and we'll say you are a liar, So some of those things don't change, And I have no doubt, your generation, sometimes when people talk about they're not allowing young men to be in power, that's getting it wrong. The Chinese are a very wise lot. But you won't see them rushing to put a 30-year-old where the distraction and, not because he wants to be distracted, but he's still a young man. Okay, and there are things that could make him fall or falter. So when people are rushing to be leaders, even to be governors, too early, they'll be governors And where you should stay, you reach it at 35, and you still have 65 years to go. So it's something you gradually learn, and because those values, again, you are tested. And I have no doubt there are as many people, percentage-wise, in your generation who have leadership capabilities as in any generation. Unless we want to deceive ourselves and say we gave birth to morons.
Thank you, sir. What wishes do you have for the youths?
In this age and time, one of the things I would wish for the youth is that they're a lot more tolerant of each other, because this country is more complex than people tend to appreciate. And as the way all these modern gadgets come, we have to interact a lot more. And it's so tempting to become extremist. So tolerance is one virtue I pray for. But more than that, at the individual level, I would hope you would be more innovative. In fact, show the genius of the Nigerian, which we haven't been able to show because we show it in the negative way. It was always a reaction against. But when we try to channel our innovative capabilities in the right direction, I think we could make this country one of the greatest in the world. And I believe the youth can do that. I believe also that they can become a lot more patriotic than they have been. And patriotism is, not just loving your country, which is almost an abstract thing, but loving your people, wanting to do things to the community to help everybody be better than they were, and the country to be a better place than you met it. That's still our challenge. It was the challenge of every generation, that you leave Nigeria a better place than you met it. And that you can do irrespective of where you are. It's my hope that we will gradually diminish the importance of politics in our life. It's got people on the wrong, all because it's an easy way to steal. That's a fact. And be rich overnight. But not by hard work, not by exercising the brain, but by just being voluble. Now we need everybody, irrespective of where he finds himself, as a teacher, as a scientist, as a worker, to give his best so that the country can be a much better place. That doesn't mean we won't have politicians, but I can assure you this phase of politics will go. You can see the way the oil price is dropping. That type of politics, when you steal and we don't with impunity, would stop. Because if we were paying tax and the government depends on the tax we pay, you can't steal it. We will deal with you. It's because it's coming from a resource which we have no control over. We don't know how much of it is pumped any day. You can go on stealing. But the world itself is bent on stopping the dominance of hydrocarbon. Okay, so we would have leaders, we would have youth who would understand that a nation lives, tries become important by its own innovative capabilities. And that for me would be what I would pray, that the youths of Nigeria would see that their God-given talents need to be exercised. It's not Europe alone that can invent things. We can do a lot more of that here. And that will be my prayer for the youth, that they would also leave a common generation which would have character. I always remind people that's the reason when we graduate students, we say we found them, what do we say? That we found them able both in character and learning. And character is always the most important. Thank you very much. I hope good.